Sarah here, and welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be the dedicated, spoiler-filled reading vlog for A Dance with the Fae Prince by Elise Kova. Now, I've already read quite a bit of this book. I just haven't really had a chance to vlog because I started reading this in the car on the way to my in-laws for Thanksgiving. So it's kind of hard to film when my husband's like listening to his like video game music and we're in a car and whatnot. But I am currently 29% of the way in, and I'm on chapter 12, and I'm really liking this. So this is kind of like Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast retelling, and this is set in the same world as A Deal with the Elf King, but it's focusing on the Fae and what's going on with them. So we have our main girl, Katria, and she's basically Cinderella. Like, her dad ended up marrying this woman who had a daughter already, and her dad is believed to be dead because they had trader ships and they like went down and he hasn't returned. No one has returned. And the family's also kind of like having financial troubles now because, they lost their trade ships. Her stepmother decides to like marry her off for money. She has no say in this at all. She's been treated like a servant since, her dad married this woman. And she has a half-sister who is half the stepmother's and half her dad's. And she's really sweet and nice, but Helen, who came along with the stepmother, and the stepmother are like really mean and nasty to her and treat her horrible. She's basically told, oh, someone's coming to probably marry you, and you don't have any say. You don't, like, whether you want to marry them or not, you're just gonna get married to them. Well, we have this guy Oren, who's like the representative for this guy Lord Fenwood, and he's like, yeah, sure, the Lord will marry her if you give him this book. And apparently this book is the only thing that's left from Katria's mother. And so the stepmother's like, sure. And then they also, Oren gives like, I think like $4,000 or 4,000 gold coins or whatever for Katria. So Katria is then taken to Lord Fenwood's like estate that's like right on the edge of this forest where like you're not supposed to go into because people who go into it don't come back out. And there are like several rules that she's supposed to follow. She can't leave her wing of like the estate after dark. She's not supposed to go past the brick wall into like the forest area, and she's not allowed to actually see her husband. She's not allowed to look at him. She can't see him. Doesn't know what he looks like. I find this very interesting because personally, if you're getting married to someone and you don't know who they are, and they're just like, hey, you can't see your husband, but we're going to give you all the luxury and things that you want. Just follow our rules. Dude, I'd be happy. I'd be like, wait, I don't have to, like, meet some crummy guy who, like, I honestly have no interest in, and I can just live in the lap of luxury and not worry about anything anymore. But no, this isn't good enough for her. She wants to know who her husband is. She thinks this is weird that she, can't see him. And though she's not that concerned that she doesn't have, like, marital duties to perform, she still wants to know who her husband is and why he, like, agreed to marry her, why he wants her mom's book. And so she ends up getting a meeting with her husband, but she's not allowed to look at him. They, like, sit in chairs back to back and they talk to each other. And he has, like, this really sexy voice. And, like, he comes and watches her. She has some type of instrument that she plays. And so he listens to her play that. And then they start, like, meeting nightly. And so she's become interested in him and wants to see him. And I think she's also getting lonely because she only gets to interact with her husband, but, like, she can't see him. And then she interacts with Oren, who is, like, the only servant there at the estate. There's no one else. It's just them three. Now, there are people who there are creatures or people or someone who are coming and like visiting at night. And I'm assuming that they're Fae creatures because later we find out that the Lord is Fae and that Orin is Fae. We find out why she can't cross the wall because she's out working in the garden. She asks for like some tasks to do. She's like, I don't want to be a servant. I don't like want to have to do things, but I would like to contribute. I would like something to do. So is there like something that I can do to help out? And so they give her the task of like cleaning up the garden. She doesn't get any much further than that because she ends up seeing a little girl crying in the forest, and she's trying to coax her to come over to where the wall is, and like she's reaching out for her, and then the girl like pulls her over the wall and like turns into a fairy. And so then Orin and Lord Fenwood have to then save her, and of course she gets in trouble for breaking the rule, even though technically she didn't cross the wall. She was pulled over the wall, so that's really a technicality. I mean, her arm went over the wall, but she was still staying there. If she hadn't been grabbed, she would have been behind the wall still. So technicality there. She finds it really weird, and she can't believe that Fae are actually real. And her husband makes a comment about she like wants to know why he knows so much about fairies, and he makes a comment about being a hunter, and she goes, "Oh, are you a Fae hunter?" And he kind of like indirectly kind of says like yes. So she thinks that he's doing some like illegal business or something. And also her sisters come to visit, and like, you haven't met him. He's a what? You don't know what he does. Like, how is he getting his money? And so her older, well, I think both girls are younger than her, but like her non-biological sister kind of puts doubts in her head, and she's like, you really need to be questioning these things. What's going to happen to you if like he dies or gets arrested? Like, you're going to end up back with us, or you're, on the streets or whatever. So you need to figure this out. So she ends up leaving her area, like wing, at night, and she goes to like her husband's area, and she finds this letter from him saying that he's gone to do something and he probably won't be coming back. So the estate and everything's hers, and there's some money, and she's just like, what? So she ends up finding like this tunnel and follows it to seeing like all like these fairy creatures dancing around this fire. And then she sees this, more attractive Fae male who is like reading from her mom's book and goes to throw it in the fire. And of course she freaks out. She goes rushing into the clearing. As she's trying to save the book, she ends up falling into the fire. Well, Lord Fenwood is a fairy, or is Fae, and this book, if like, I guess a spell in it is read on a certain night or whatever, will give him power. Well, since she fell into the fire, she actually now has that power, and she's crossed the fade and is in, I think it's Midgard, because the natural world I think is human. Midgard is where the Fae, the vampires, the elves, and everything live. Well, I'm thinking that she might be part Fae or part something, because she has this like ability where if she tells a lie, she tastes metal in her mouth. But if someone lies to her, she like smells like a burning smell, which she hasn't really told anyone about. And then not only that, but they said that they have to get her to whoever they need to take her to get the powers out of her, so that they can be given to her husband, whose real name is actually Davian. But she'll die in 3 days because humans can't survive in Midgard because they can't eat the food and stuff. Well, they're like, well, here, this probably will taste really gross and won't do anything for you, but might as well try. So she tastes the Fae food, and it tastes delicious to her. So she has this special ability. She loves the Fae food, and her mom had like this book that has like Fae magic in it. So I'm thinking she's part Fae. Like, maybe her mom was a fairy, and who knows? I think her mom supposedly died, but maybe her mom actually just went back to Midgard. I don't know. Who knows? Her mom might show up. I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if there was actually like a dead body or not. I'm thinking she's like part Fae. And so now they're like traveling through Midgard to get to this place to get the powers out of her. And that's what I've read so far. And I am liking it. I don't think I'm liking it as much as A Deal with the Elf King, because I feel like with that, the relationship really started to develop quicker. So we got more like romantic scenes between our main characters, where in this one it's dragging to get to the point I'm over a quarter of the way into the book, and there's like been no, I mean, there's this like tension a little bit, like this interest between Davian and Catria, but it's just not enough. I feel like this one's more about like figuring out what's going on and who he is, and like I feel like this is more of a mystery than like a romance, which I don't mind. I like mystery, but when you're reading, this is supposed to be fantasy romance, so I want the romance. You know what I'm saying? I want more romance, less mystery. But I don't want just all romance and have it just be like a plot or whatever. Those are my thoughts so far. That is what I think, and I will probably get more. I think I have a little over 6 hours left, so I'll probably be able to get down to 3 hours left to read, and then I might be able to finish it tomorrow. But I do have editing and stuff to do, so I don't know. But yes, need to get back to this. Hey everyone, it is now Tuesday, and I'm almost finished with this book. I'm very close to being done. I am 81% of the way through the book, and I have an hour and 39 minutes left. So, what all has happened? So we find out that Davian is like the last member of the Aveness family, or so he believes. I have a feeling that our main girl character is actually the last actual heir, because he's an heir because his mother married a man who was the last of the Aveness, and because they got married, he therefore, even though his father wasn't his biological father, I guess it still counts in the Fae realm. But I have a feeling that Catria is actually the last actual living heir. But we find out about this stuff after these people called the Butchers are coming after Davian and his group to like kill him, because they know that he has accessed the power of the kings. Of course, it's in Catria, so they want to get rid of him and Catria. That way, no one can take over the throne from the Baltovs. So there's been like this whole like political battle between the Baltovs and the Aveness. The Aveness are apparently the rightful rulers of the Fae, but the Baltovs have kind of like taken over and have been like sending the Butchers to like kill all the Aveness, so that there's no one to really take back the throne. They get attacked in the forest as they're traveling to Dreamsong? Yeah. And also, they're in Midscape, not Midgard. That's the land where the Fae and the elves and vampires and everything live. That was my bad. So, they finally make it to Dreamsong. And the lady who's in charge there, Vina, has been working with a butcher named Alor to try to figure out a way to get the power out of Catria to give it to Davian. And, of course, it's kind of weird that a butcher is trying to help them take over the kingdom, but they're all like, oh yeah, she's trustworthy, she's, working for us, but she has the king, fooled or whatever. And they try one thing, and it doesn't work. So they find another thing that they can do. Apparently they can go to this lake that the old kings and queens used to go to and, like, put the power into, it was the glass crown, but they don't have access to that. So Allure gives them this little, like, pendant to put the power in so that they can then give it to Davian. Well, before this happens, we end up meeting Raph, who is this young Fae boy, and he kind of makes a deal with Catria, and, like, she has to dance one dance for him. And they go to the tavern, and she plays her lute. That was also what I couldn't remember last time. It's a lute that she plays. I wanted to say flute, but I'm like, no, she's playing with it like a guitar. It's not a flute. It's a lute. Then his parents show up, and, like, he gets in trouble because he apparently was going to make her dance one dance until basically, I guess, she collapsed and died or whatever. And so they made him say, the deal is done, like, you don't owe me anything. We also find out more about Catria and, like, how she was treated by her family. So she was surprised when Raph pretty much just gets a talking to, and, like a stern talking to. She, like, it's like, please don't get him in trouble. He really didn't mean any harm. I don't want, I really don't want you to hurt him. Like, why would we hurt him? We love our son. Like, us taking away his deal and talking to him is enough. And she's just like, wow, like, this is crazy. Because her family apparently was very abusive, and like her dad also knew that the stepmother and her sister Helen were being abusive to her, and he didn't do anything about it. So her dad was also complicit in the abuse. And so she, I guess, since her stepmother married her father, she hasn't really known anyone to like care for her or worry about her or anything like that. And so she really has this thing against falling in love because she thinks that love destroys you, because I don't know, her stepmother loved her father and her father loved the stepmother, and like they just spiraled down into like this horrible relationship and then treated her horribly. So she sees love as this like horrible thing. And then we also have Davian, who apparently is in love with Katria, which I just don't understand this relationship at all, because like, yeah, they were talking to each other, but she wasn't allowed to see him, and now she's been thrust into the Fae realm where like all of this stuff is happening, and I just don't feel like they're really getting to know each other. There's just like an attraction between them. And so they kind of like agree. I don't want to say they agree, but like they like kind of say that they're going to have be physical with each other without any strings attached. But like he's apparently already in love with her, and she doesn't know it. But she's kind of falling in love with him, but she's denying it because she doesn't want to ever fall in love. So they kind of do some stuff, and we don't get to any like smut or like romance between them until 54% into the book. So you would think with all of that there would be a lot of build-up, there would be a lot of stuff happening that would like, I guess, make it so that they're in love, but I just don't feel like there's enough between them to make their, or at least his love, realistic. Like, I don't know. They kind of have this thing, and then they go off to go to this lake. Well, when they go to the lake, there's like this really dense, misty area surrounding the lake. And while they're there, like, they get attacked. And of course, Allure is the one who's attacking them. And previously, Katria had told Davian that she didn't trust Allure, that she didn't think that she was being honest, because she was trying to get out of Allure if the king knew that they were going to the lake, if he had people at the lake, and Allure kept on evading her question. Like, she wouldn't answer it. She was like, being a politician, dancing around the answer without actually saying the answer. Because Dreamsong, they went and like burrowed like a tunnel through the mountain so that if the current king attacks, they can get people out. So Allure told them that he was focusing on Dreamscape or Dreamsong. And Katria's like, well, that's nice, but is he also going after us? And she's like, oh, well, he can't spare the troops. And she's like, that's not an answer. So she tells Davian about this conversation that they have, and he kind of like just blows off. He goes, oh, I trust her, Vina trusts her. And Katria's like, well, I don't. And he goes, well, I'm sorry, but we're going to the lake. I need those powers. Like, he is so obsessed with these powers. Like, not only that, he's so obsessed with becoming the king and getting these powers. It's like, how do you have time to be in love with somebody when you're just so driven? And not only that, but the woman that you love is telling you that she's concerned for your all safety, including herself, but you're gonna go there because you want that power. So yeah, they're going through the mist. They get attacked by Allure. Giles like disappears, so they don't know what happens to him. And then Shay, who is kind of in a relationship with Giles, it's not like official or anything, and Shay is a former butcher, but she stays behind and fights Allure so that Katria and Davian can get through the mist to get to the lake. And this is where it becomes interesting, because she starts hearing a song that is a song that she recognizes that her mother would sing or play for her. And so she tells Davian that she hears this and she's going to follow it. He goes, oh, I don't know, there's sirens around here, they could be luring you. And she goes, no, I trust it, I'm going to follow the song. And he goes, okay. And it's just so interesting how her mom had the book that had the spell that contained the powers of the King of Avernus. She also knew all these fairy songs. I'm telling you. So they end up at the lake, and there's also like a kind of like a rundown estate or mansion or something like that. And so they spend the night there, and they actually get it on for the first time, like fully. And Davian, reveals to her that he's in love with her. And she's just like, oh, I don't know. You're going to leave me once you get the powers. And they're also both virgins, apparently. This is their first time for both of them. And it was just an interesting, because she's like, she loves him too, but she's still like unsure. Like, it was a very interesting exchange. And so then they actually go, and she gets in the water, and he actually anoints her as king of the Fae, which is very interesting. And she also points out, because in the mansion or whatever, there's pictures of like queens. And she goes, I thought you said there was always, a man as a king. He goes, oh no, there's sometimes queens, but usually it's a man. Which also leads me to believe that they pointed out the fact that there can be queens. I think she's going to end up the queen of the Fae. Because it's also called a dance with the Fae Prince, not a dance with the Fae King. I'm just saying. So when he's doing this anointing for her, she like goes underwater and she sees like all the other like dead kings and queens, and like at the end of the anointing they're all like cheering and happy, which if she wasn't actually, like, she has the power obviously, but they made it sound like only someone with Avaness blood could like have the powers and be king. So why would former kings and queens be happy and clapping if she wasn't actually related to them, So she's getting ready. She's put all of her power into this crystal necklace thing and is getting ready to give it to Davian when they're attacked by 10 butchers. Not only that, but because she put all of the power into this crystal, all of like the mist that was protecting the lake has now disappeared. Like, she took all of the magic that was there, including her own, and put it in this crystal. Also sus. Her horse ends up getting killed, so they're running away on his horse. And he falls off and tells her to go protect the crystal, to go back to Dreamsong. So she leaves him behind, and she's really upset because she feels like she's betraying him. But at the same time, because he wants to protect this power and he doesn't want the current king to get it and destroy it, it's best for her to run because, what can she honestly do right now? She has no power because she put in the crystal. And she's a human. So on her way back, she finds Giles, who apparently was wounded, but not seriously. So he was like waiting, hoping to see them on their way back. And so they go back to Dreamsong, and they find out that Dreamsong has been attacked, and Allure knew about the secret tunnel. So that plan failed. Vina and quite a few of like the townspeople or whatever have been sent to the king to be like made examples of, to be executed. Well, they find out the Wrath actually ended up saving quite a few, I think they said like 24 children, and hid them like in this cave. And so they're safe, at least those kids are. And they have tasked Wrath with trying to get her into the Fae King's castle so that she can give her power to Davian before he gets killed. Because she's believing that if Davian gets killed, there's no one else who can hold the power. And no one will be able to compete with the Baltovs or whatever. So that's pretty much, they've gotten in, at least gotten into the outer wall, and now they're trying to figure a way actually into the castle. So yeah, I'm pretty sure my theory is correct. There's just so many things that are pointing to it. I'm going to get back to reading. Like I said, I have about an hour and a half left, so I will find out real quickly if my theory is correct or not. Whether this theory is correct or not, was anyone else feeling this while reading this book? Were you like, I know, there's something more going on here. She's more than what she appears. Or is that just me? Are you thinking something different? I don't know. But I'm going to finish the book and I'll let you know. Alrighty, it is now Wednesday and I have finished reading A Dance with the Fae Prince. And my theory was correct. So does that mean this book's predictable? Not necessarily. But there's just so many, I feel like, things being inserted, like little clues that's just like, I think this is what the end goal is going to be type of thing. But I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I didn't really believe the relationship between Katria and Davian. Like, it just didn't do anything for me. Like, I wasn't really rooting for them. And I just don't think there was anything really there to, like, for them to be together. Besides maybe lust. I don't know. where I left off telling you what was going on. So they got into the king's fortress area, and they find Shay. Shay is also there to try to rescue everyone. And Giles and Shay decide that they're going to make a distraction so that Katria and Raph can actually, like, get into the high court. So this happens, they get in, and they find the musicians that Katria had played with in Dreamsong are there, and they're performing for the king. She goes and asks them if her and Raph can join their troupe. And she has to have, like, a little, like, playoff, like, her playing the lute and him playing his instrument, and whoever, like, bests wins. Well, I guess they kind of, like, it's a tie, and they're like, yeah, sure, you can join. So that's how she gets into the palace. They're performing for the king, and that's the night that the king decides to kill Davian in front of everybody. She's playing along with the musicians, and then she starts, like, acting really silly and playing really weird and the king gets into it, and, like, he's beating Davian up, and then she ends up breaking, I think she breaks the necklace to give anyway, she ends up giving the powers to Davian. Then she flees with Raph to go and, like, find everybody else who's been captured from Dreamsong. And, of course, you know, fighting commences. Davian's now super powerful. She ends up finding the captives. She knocks out Allure, and they actually put her in a cage and lock her up. Which, I don't remember them saying what happens to her after they lock her up. She's, like, never talked about again. They lock her in a cage, and that's it. I don't know what happens to her. I know Shay made a comment that she wanted to finish her off, but we don't actually get to see that, so we don't actually know if, for all we know, Allure's still sitting there in that cage, starving to death. I don't know. So that's the last time we see that traitor. Once they free everyone in the cages and lock up Allure, Vina, Katria, and some of the more powerful Fae go back up to, like, the throne room area to help with the fight. And the king, who has had the glass crown ripped off his head and, like, was thrown across the room, has escaped through this back door that was, like, behind the throne. So Katria is, like, wondering where he was. She sees his blood, like, trailing to this door, so she goes to follow after him. And she ends up finding him, and he's actually, like, packing up, like, he's going to go and, like, flee. She bests him. They end up both falling out a window. She catches herself, and he falls to, I guess, his death. I'm pretty sure they found his body. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they found his body later on. Shay, I think, goes and finds it. Then Katria is remembering this whole thing about her back, because she remembers this time where she fell off the roof along with her sister, and she remembers grabbing her sister and, like, falling on the ground. And then she had such a bad wound that they had to cauterize it. She has, like, these really bad scars on her back that have been burned. She's like, there's something more about that day. There's something more that happened, but she can't really remember what it was. And there were some other things that she feels kind of, like, murky about, because in the, like, the king's, I guess, like, study or whatever, she sees books on the wall that looks like the book that her mom had that had the spell in it that, you know, started this whole journey through the Fae lands. And so she's like, there's something familiar, there's something, like, else that I'm, like, forgetting. Well, the king also, before he falls to his death, tells Katria that Davian isn't the true heir, that the glass crown isn't going to sit on his head, that he's not going to be the Fae king because he's not the rightful heir. And she's like, no, that's not true. He goes, no, there's someone out there who is the heir, but they probably don't know it. They've probably been living somewhere their lives not knowing that they're really the ruler of the Fae realm. So the battle's over. They go back to the throne room, and Davian asks her to put the glass crown on his head, and so she does it, and it falls off. So he has the power of the kings, but he can't wear the glass crown because he's not the true heir. See where this is going? They have a glass crown, and they're now asking people who think that they are a heir of Avernus to come and try on this glass crown. Instead of a glass shoe, it's a glass crown, because this is a Cinderella retelling. Well, all these people are coming, and of course it's not fitting on anyone's head, and Katria is having, like, this this memory, like she's forgetting something and there's more. And then her and Davian end up having this like talk, and he's like, "You're the heir," and she's like, "No, there's no way." He goes, "No, you're the heir. Like, everything's adding up now. It's making sense." He goes, "That day that you fell off the roof at your family's house, you probably sprouted wings and they cut them off and burned you," because they also made references about her stepmother calling her a monster, like Monster Girl. He ends up putting the crown on her head and it stays. So she ends up, I believe, getting her powers back. And Davian becomes he like is co-ruling with her because she wasn't expecting this. Like, she was not prepared for this. So she's having to study on what to do, like different Fae politics and, all that stuff that she needs to be able to rule. So most of the time Davian's actually ruling. And they haven't gotten married. They are like a couple, and I believe like they're sharing the same bedroom or the same bed and whatnot, but she's not ready for that until she's fully like trained and prepared to be the ruler. She doesn't want to add, I guess, being married, even though, is it really going to change for them besides maybe trying to make a baby? I don't know. But yeah, so Katya is half human, half Fae, and at the very end of the book, she goes back to her stepmother's house, gets her horse Misty, which I don't know if I mentioned that in this video, but the last things that she had from her parents, her mother's lute in that book, and then the horse Misty that her dad gave her. Well, when she went to go and live with, or get married to Lord Fenwood, or Davian, her stepmother wouldn't let her take her horse. It's her horse, it's hers, but her stepmother would not let her take it. So she comes back and she's like, "Nope, I'm taking my horse." And the stepmother's like, "Oh, you can't." And she's like, "Yes, I can. It is mine. I'm taking it." And then her half-sister, Laura, she's like, "If you don't want to be here anymore, you can come with us. Like, you can live with us. I'll take care of you. I don't want you to end up like them. You're so sweet." So her sister Laura actually decides to get in the carriage and leave with them. And of course, the stepmother and Helen are like, "Ah!" And that's kind of pretty much where it ends. It was good. I liked it, but I did feel like this one was a lot darker than the first one, which, don't get me wrong, I do like dark romances. I do like dark in my books, but because the first one wasn't dark, or at least it didn't seem dark to me, I wasn't expecting the second one to be dark. So it just had very different vibes from A Deal with the Elf King, and I really, really liked A Deal with the Elf King. I gave that one 4 stars, and I read that one really fast, and it was just so good. Where A Dance with the Fae Prince, I was just like, this is interesting, I like it, but I'm not loving it. And then once I was like, oh, okay, I know where this is going, then it kind of also was just like, okay, let's get to the big reveal that I already know is going to happen. So, I mean, it was still enjoyable, but it just, I hate it when a book is too predictable. I had inklings. I was like, I knew she had to at least be Fae when when we find out that he is a Fae and he wanted the spell book to give him powers. I was like, she's at least a Fae. She's not a human like everyone thinks she is, or at least she's not fully human. She might be half human. So I knew at that point, I was like, she's not just some measly human. There's something more about her. And then as we slowly got more and more into the book, I'm like, especially once they got to the lake. As soon as they got to the lake and they started talking about queens, I was like, oh, she's supposed to be the queen. I was like, this is a dead giveaway right here. But, I mean, those are just my thoughts. So, yeah, that's this book. I was right about my theory, so that always makes me happy. Let me know down below what rating you gave this book. Did you figure out the ending too? Were you kind of a little, if you read A Deal with the Elf King, which one did you prefer? Also, have you read the new one, A Duel with the Vampire Lord, I believe is what it is. I want to read that one because I love vampires. So if you've read that one, let me know if it's any good. I'm thinking about maybe making that one of the book club picks for next year. Maybe March or April. I don't know. But I do really want to read that one. So let me know if you've read it and what you think. If you got all the way to the end, please leave me the fairy emoji, since this is A Dance with the Fae Prince. And I hope you have a wonderful good day or night, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye!